London wakes, Big Ben strikes, and Clarissa Dalloway steps into a single June day, yet an entire lifetime unfurls behind every glance. Beat. Enter a stream of consciousness journey where ordinary errands reveal extraordinary depths. 1. Morning preparations, Clarissa's stroll and the pulse of London. The novel opens with Clarissa Dalloway, society hostess and seasoned observer of her own memories, stepping onto Bond Street to buy flowers for her evening party. Beat. Woolf immediately blends exterior bustle with interior reflection. While the bells of Big Ben carve time into assertive slices, Clarissa's thoughts wander, touching the sheen of fresh air, recalling childhood summers at Bourton, and appraising her role as Richard Dalloway's wife. She observes shop windows and passing buses, yet underneath the flaneur calm is a vibrant undercurrent of self-scrutiny. Moments of joy, what a lark, what a plunge, collide with a residual brush of illness from a recent operation, reminding her that life's grandeur is stitched with vulnerability. Beat. On her route, she encounters Hugh Whitbread, embodiment of traditional respectability, and the brief exchange highlights societal expectations pressing on upper-class women. Woolf's fluid narrative voice pirouettes among bystanders, dispersing into the interior monologues of maids, flower sellers, and motorcar spectators, illustrating the interconnectedness of urban consciousness. The skyline's aeroplane, writing smoke words above, becomes a collective spectacle, suggesting the fragile thread that binds separate minds in a modern metropolis. Beat. Beneath Clarissa's polished surface simmer thoughts of her youthful friend Sally Seton and her former suitor Peter Walsh. Their memories hover like half-open doors, raising questions about passion, freedom, and the choices that calcify over time. Emphasis, identity, floats to the fore, as Clarissa wonders whether her true self slipped away when she chose security over fervour. Each street corner triggers a temporal shift, and the act of buying flowers turns into an existential meditation on aging, mortality, and the invisibility that can cloak middle-aged women. Beat. By the time Clarissa reaches her Westminster home, we have already travelled decades in her mind, sensing how a single day in 1923 mirrors the whole arch of her life. The morning establishes the novel's central inquiry. Can moments of heightened perception redeem the ordinariness of daily routine? Or do they only underline the emphasis, ephemeral nature of being alive? 2. Noon cross-currents, Septimus Warren Smith and the costs of war. While Clarissa adjusts vases and ponders seating charts, Woolf cuts abruptly to another consciousness. Septimus Warren Smith, a shell-shocked veteran haunted by the trenches of the Great War. Beat. Sitting with his Italian wife Rezia in Regent's Park, Septimus hears sparrows chirping in Greek and sees beauty as a herald for both ecstasy and doom. His hallucinations of fallen comrade Evans expose PTSD before the term existed. His terror is not weakness, Woolf insists, but a brutal effect of modern conflict. Beat. The couple seek help from doctors. First, the genial but superficial Sir William Bradshaw, then the bustling Dr. Holmes, yet receive platitudes instead of understanding. Bradshaw prescribes rest in a country home, codifying insanity as a social inconvenience rather than a soul's emergency. Through these scenes, Woolf launches a searing critique of institutional power and the stiff upper lip ideology. Septimus's plight dramatizes how society silences those whose suffering disrupts the facade of post-war normalcy. Beat. Simultaneously, Peter Walsh, recently returned from India and still nursing love wounds, wanders London, muttering judgments about its inhabitants. His memories of Clarissa flood back, garden kisses under a bursting star, arguments about life's purpose, the sting of her refusal. Noon light refracts past and present into kaleidoscopic shards, echoing Peter's inconsistent self-appraisal. He clutches a pocket knife, symbolic of his tendency to open imagined futures, only to fold them shut again. Emphasis. Regret coats his musings like fine dust. Beat. Through rhythmic shifts between Septimus, Retzia, Peter, and peripheral strangers, Woolf underscores how private anguish and public spectacle intersect. The roar of passing traffic, the hush of a solemn park, the drumming of Big Ben, each sound stitches personal timelines into the collective fabric. Noon, therefore, becomes a crucible. Under its intensity, characters discover what they can no longer conceal. Septimus edges toward irreversible despair. Peter rehearses a confession he may never voice. London keeps moving, indifferent, yet strangely compassionate in its sheer multiplicity. 3. Afternoon reflections, social masks, and the search for connection. As afternoon lengthens, Clarissa retreats to her attic sanctuary, a room symbolizing her solitary center despite her reputation as consummate hostess. Beat. Here she confronts Peter unexpectedly. He arrives unannounced, hat in hand, eyes ablaze with old emotions. Their conversation oscillates between light jokes and near confessions, exposing the tensile thread that still binds them. Clarissa notices the silver streaks in his hair. Peter marks new fragility around her eyes, and both sense time's inexorable march. Beat. Peter speaks of Daisy, a younger woman he hopes to marry, yet his voice betrays uncertainty. Clarissa, hearing distant shouts of her daughter Elizabeth and the pious tutor Miss Kilman, feels an ache for simplicity, for a reality unfiltered by etiquette. Woolf layers stream of consciousness so deftly that one sentence may contain memory, perception, and future speculation. The style itself dramatizes the theme. Human experience is never linear, but a spiral of impressions. Beat. Downstairs, servants bustle, crafting an evening pageant meant to project harmony. Richard Dalloway returns from lunch with Lady Bruton and brings Clarissa roses, an affectionate gesture, yet also a token of roles they mutually uphold. He contemplates telling her he loves her, but the words clog in his throat. Decades of English reserve have trained him to replace confession with gesture. Emphasis, intimacy. Here is signalled by silence more than speech. Beat. Meanwhile, Woolf tracks Elizabeth on an omnibus journey across the Strand, where she tastes a whiff of independence. The city appears novel through adolescent eyes, and her drifting thoughts about careers contrast sharply with her mother's well-tended social garden. Janus-like, the novel looks backward and forward, suggesting generational evolution. By mid-afternoon, every character stands at a threshold between self and society, memory and aspiration, fear and desire. Beat. In this liminal zone, Woolf foregrounds a central inquiry. Are the masks we wear inhibitors, or are they delicate shells that enable human coexistence? Clarissa senses that her evening fate might offer fleeting communion, a space where individual selves, like lanterns on a string, briefly illuminate one another before darkness returns. The question lingers, bright yet unresolved, as afternoon slides into dusk. 4. Evening convergence. The party and the epiphany of being night descends, chandeliers blaze, and Clarissa's party unfurls as a miniature of London's social hierarchy. Beat. Nobles mix with scholars, doctors with diplomats. Conversation flows like champagne, effervescent yet prone to vanish. Clarissa, moving through rooms scented with lilac and tobacco, performs a hostess's dance, greeting, listening, stitching conversational threads. Yet inside she watches herself, wondering whether this performance honors or betrays her authentic spirit. Beat. Peter arrives, observing Clarissa from across the crowd, his old fascination rekindled. Sally Seton, now Lady Rossiter and unexpectedly present, propels Clarissa into reverie. Memories of seaside escapades, stolen kisses on the balcony, youthful vows to remake the world. Their reunion reveals how time both erodes and preserves, Sally's once wild hair subdued by pins, yet her quicksilver mind still sparking. The women share a moment of silent recognition, an acknowledgement that certain emotions never fully dim. Emphasis. Passion flickers anew. Beat. Then Sir William Bradshaw appears, inadvertently announcing the shocking news. Earlier that day, Septimus Warren Smith leapt from a window to his death. The revelation ripples through Clarissa's soul. Though she never met Septimus, she feels a profound kinship, as if his desperate act exposes the raw underside of her own social facade. She slips into a quiet room, stands by a window, and contemplates mortality. The party hum fades. Big Ben strikes 11, each chime a pulse inside her chest. Beat. In the stillness, Clarissa imagines Septimus's leap as an act of defiance against the tyranny of suffering, a refusal to let doctors or society dull his inner flame. Rather than judging, she honors his courage, sensing that life becomes meaningful only when one chooses, consciously, to meet existence on one's own terms. This internal epiphany expands her worldview. The party, the flowers, the careful lists, all matter precisely because they glitter against the abyss. Emphasis. Transcendence. Dawns quietly as she returns to her guests, ready to celebrate not appearances but the quivering miracle of simply being alive. Beat. Woolf's orchestration of perspectives culminates here. Every storyline flows into Clarissa's moment by the window, like rivers converging at sea. The reader and listener feels the weight of collective consciousness, recognizing that behind every polite smile might lie an untold battle, and behind every tragedy, a seed of shared humanity.